In this video, we're going to take a look at integration tests versus unit tests. So far, everything that we've looked at in the JUnit section has been an unit test. So let's come in here. I'm going to create a new test. I'm going to come in here, main Java, just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to come into services, and let's take a look at the Spring Data JPA test. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to create a new test for it. And let's go ahead and do a setup. And we'll do all these guys here as well, like so. But now, see how it's suggesting the class name of test? I'm going to change this to IT for integration test. So this is a very important designation. This is going to work with our build tools, specifically Maven. And I'm going to get into the actual execution under Maven in a future lecture, but I'm just setting this up because Maven will by default detect integration tests when they end with the suffix of IT for integration tests. So I'm going to say OK there. And we'll go ahead and add this in. And right now, we don't have the capabilities so far of what we've covered in the class to do a proper integration test. So I want to say, pretend that we're going to be connecting to a database or bringing up a Spring context or something, and we will be covering a lot of this coming up in the course. My purpose here was to start you to think of a distinction between our unit tests, which are very light and fast, versus integration tests where we're going to do something like connect to a message queue or talk to a database or something like that. So we haven't come up to that on the class yet, but I did want to establish an actual, what we're going to call an integration test. So let's go ahead and go out to this test. And a couple different ways that we can do this. There's different organization models. So you can see that it's gone right into Spring Framework, into the test directory. If you're using Gradle, you might want to configure a whole integration test folder. Maven's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to cover all that execution coming up in a future part of the class. But for right now, I wanted to establish, I'm using in air quotes, integration test, because this is just a stub of a test. And once we start getting into the Spring content of the course, it's going to be a lot easier to set up proper integration tests. But for the purposes of this lecture and this section of the course, by naming the class with the end of IT to Maven, that is indicating that this is an integration test, and it will be run and executed by Maven differently, and we'll come up to that in a future section of the course.